Hey everyone, Mr. Macintosh here, and OpenCore Legacy Patcher 0.4.4 update is here, and it is jam-packed with quality of life improvements, including one of the most requested features, automatic root patching, during installation and on updates. In this video, I'm going to go over all those new features and give you a full walkthrough of how they work. We got a lot to cover. Let's jump in and get started. If you're new to my OpenCore Legacy Patcher update videos, I give you a visual walkthrough of all the changes and features of each release. You can always come to the GitHub and read the excellent patch notes that Mykola put together, and a lot of times they're better than even Apple's patch notes. But what I do is I put a detailed chapter section in the description of this video so you can go to the exact feature or change that you would like to learn about. You can always go to the OpenCore Legacy Patcher guide that is fully updated with all the questions that you might have, but a lot of people are visual learners and they would like to see an example of how each change and feature works on their unsupported Mac. So let's jump into those new changes now. Let's talk about the best new feature of the 0.4.4 update, the new automatic root volume patching system. It is broken into two different parts. The first part is the install assistant patching system, which is for brand new Macs where you're installing macOS on an unsupported Mac for the first time. If your Mac requires graphics acceleration drivers, like this 2011 does, the setup assistant will be super slow when you're first setting up the Mac. So you'll be clogging through that setup assistant because you do not have the graphics acceleration drivers installed. And then once you get to the desktop, the system will continue to be running very slow or not working right. It might not go to sleep. The keyboard backlight might not be working. And you might be thinking, what is wrong with this patcher? I'm going to go back to Sierra High Sierra. But if you're following the guide, it tells you that you need to open up the OpenCore Legacy Patcher app and run the post-root volume patches to be able to fix those issues and add those drivers back to the system. macOS Monterey removed a ton of drivers that were there in Big Sur. So a lot of the systems require this root patching. And what's nice about this new install assistant patching system is that the 0.4.4 update, when it's creating the USB installer through here, we'll go back to the main menu here, and when we're creating the macOS installer through the new application, what it's going to do is going to put a package inside the installer that will run after the installation of macOS. And you'll see a new progress bar like this, and that is going to install the root volume patches for your Mac if they're required. So when you get to the setup assistant, it will be fast, and once you get to the desktop, the system will be running great automatically without having to open the application and run the root install patches after. This is absolutely fantastic, and it's going to help so many new users with the patcher. That's just one part of the system. The second part is the post-update patching system, and that's another complaint of users, is that after they install a software update, for example, in the software update pane, and it comes back up, the system's running slow again. So they're wondering, well, wait a minute, was it the update that was causing problems, or is the patcher broke? Well, they needed to run those post-volume root patches after, because the update installs over the top of them and you have to reinstall them again. What's nice about this new post-update patching system is now you'll be prompted. We've noticed that you are running your system without the root patches and would like to install them. The macOS update wipes all root patches during the installation and updates, so they need to be reinstalled. And the following patches have been detected on your system. The Ivy Bridge graphic acceleration drivers need to be installed. All you need to do here is click on OK, and it'll bring you to the next section asking you for an administrator password, and then the final part, it will automatically start the root patching for you automatically without even clicking another button. So after that's done, it'll reboot the system and your Mac will be running like it was before with a brand new update installed. So that's a quick overview of both of the new systems for the fresh install and update patching. Okay, let's talk about how to update to the new version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher 0.4.4. Now, when you open up the application, it usually will give you a pop-up saying, hey, there's a new version, and it'll give you a link to go right to this GitHub, or you can go directly to this website link, and I'll put it in the description below. Scroll down here to the assets section here, and you'll notice right away that there's a change here, and I'm going to go over this later in the patch notes, but you will want to download the OpenCore Patcher GUI.app.zip here. When it's finished downloading here, it'll jump up and down. And there it is, and you can click on it to see the app here. We'll open up the applications folder, and then we'll click on downloads and drag it right into your applications folder. And it'll say, do you want to overwrite it? Yes, I want to replace it. So now we have our brand new version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher. Let's open it up. And you will click on open because we've downloaded this right from the GitHub, yes. Okay, we're on the brand new version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher app. Okay, now that 0.4.4 is installed, we can use all the new features. So for example, if you wanted to create a brand new macOS installer with the automatic root patching system, you can click through this menu system to be able to do that. But let's go over the new software update post-install root patch system here. Let's say you want to install the new 12.3.1 or whatever update in the future. After you install the update, you're still going to need those post-root install volume patches to be installed. So to install the new system, to be able to work before we install this update, all we need to do is run the post-install root patch system, because once you do that in the new application, it will install the new update system in the background. So let's open up the locations to show you where that's being completed. In application support, library application support, there's going to be a new folder in here that's going to include the patching system. And there's also going to be a new launch agent that's going to run every time you reboot the Mac to check to see if you need root patches, for example, if you ran a software update. So what we'll do here, click on post install root patch to install the new software update automatic root patching system. So click on start root patching here. We will relaunch the application as root. We'll click on yes. We will enter in our administrator password here. Okay, the root patching is already started on the system here. Now, what you'll see here at the very end is where it'll install the new root patching system. At the very end, you'll see that it's installing the new root patch system, and there it is. There's our new launch agent that'll run to check every time we reboot to see if we need to install the root patches. And then in application support, our new folder here with the OpenCore Patcher automatic system. Right here, all the locations of the new patching system. One of the new improvements here is a new reboot button, because a lot of people thought that by just running this, the patches are installed and it should start to work. But you need to reboot so those new drivers can load, and then the system will work properly. But what we're going to do is we're going to ignore that right now, because I want to show you how we can simulate a software update and how this system will work. So what we're going to do here is we're going to return to the main menu. I'm going to click install root patch here, but I'm going to revert the root patches. And what that's going to do is it's going to simulate a software update installing over the top of those root volume patches, and then the system's not going to be running right. It's going to require those patches after. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click on reboot, and we'll watch that brand new system in action. Okay, we're almost back up here. We're at the login window, and one of the tip-offs to know that you're not running the graphics acceleration drivers is that you'll see the dark gray. There's no transparency. That's your tip-off to know that you need those drivers installed. So let's log in here, and the system will be slow at this point because, again, we uninstalled those drivers to simulate a software update installing here. What's going to happen here is, give it a second, the launch agent is already kicking in, and you'll notice down here in the dock here that you'll quickly see an OpenCore Legacy Patcher app fire up, do a check, and then we should see our pop-up message here. Give it a second. Oh, there it goes. And there we go. OpenCore Legacy Patcher has detected that you're running without root patches and would like to install them. macOS updates wipe the patches during OS installs or updates, and they need to be reinstalled. The following patches have been detected on your system: graphics acceleration and legacy keyboard backlight. Would you like to apply these patches? Yes, we do. And then we have to enter an administrator password to be able to do this. Hit enter, and the app will open again. And there it goes. Automatic root patching is kicking off. You don't even have to click any extra things here. And then also prompt you to reboot to initialize them on the next boot. And there we go. There's a reboot prompt. Let's click on it. And one more quality of life improvement is it doesn't automatically reboot the system. It will prompt you to do a user restart just in case you needed to save any applications or data that you were working on before you reboot. So all you need to do is click on restart. And look at that, right off the bat, we see the transparency, and then we know that the graphics acceleration patches work. So let's log in here. What's going to happen now is, even though the root patches are installed, it's still going to double check. and it's going to find that the system is already patched and not open and won't do anything. And you can actually see how this works in terminal. So if I take this application here in the auto patching folder here, if I run it with the auto patch option here, you will see what this is doing. It's running a check to see if the automatic patching is needed, and if it does, it will fire up the application to do the root patching for you. And you can see here, and it says determine that patching is possible, it checks for updates, and fires up the application. How cool is that? So let's review real quick here. If you want to be able to get the automatic root patching system installed right away, all you need to do is open up the app here and then run the post-install root patches over the top of itself. Now keep in mind, if you have a newer Mac and you don't see anything in here, you don't need any post-install root patches, so you don't even have to worry about it. But that's the way to check. If you are unsure if you need those post-volume patches, just go back to the main menu, click on post install root patches, and if you see stuff in here, you're going to need it, and you're going to need that new automatic update patches. So just click start root patching and it's all set. Once that's done, then you can just run software update and you're all set, and it will run through the entire automatic root patching system that I walked through here. What an amazing system here. A huge shout out to Mykola for working on this new system. It's absolutely amazing. Let's go over some more new features. There's been some enhancements to the non-metal acceleration patches. Now let's take a look at that here on our example system. If we go into the OpenCore Legacy Patcher app, under settings, if you're not aware of this, this is a new section in here called non-metal. These settings have been here before, but there's a brand new setting called beta rim. But let's go over what all these mean here. These are settings that just for non-metal Macs that have special needs for certain visual changes here that have been worked when you don't have a metal graphics card. So for example, the first one is dark menu bar. If you're running dark versus light or a light mode here, you'll see that it's white and sometimes it's hard to read. So the first option is to click here, and that gives you a black text here in the menu bar to help read it better. The second option here is enable beta blur. If your system, when you click on a menu bar item here, unless you see these squares and it's flashing, click on enable beta blur. That fixes that issue. And then finally here, enable beta rim. What does that mean? If you're running dark mode here, I've got some screenshots to show you exactly what this looks like. If we open this up and we zoom in on the screenshot here, you'll notice that there's no gray outline here that is normally on metal equipped Macs. If you run this new beta rim setting here, this is what it looks like after enabling that option. If we zoom in here, you'll see that there's now a gray outline around the menu bar. Really nice improvement. So let's log out here and see those new settings take place. And that's the way to get them to work. You have to re-enable these settings, especially with the 0.4 update, because if you look at the settings here, it says due to a renaming of global settings, users will need to retoggle these options and settings. So if you had those options before, go back in here, turn them on, and then we will be able to see them in action. We're back in and we can see our nice black text here that is easily to see in the menu bar. And if we click on the menu bar, look at that. No more flashes, no more boxes, weird graphics glitches. So that's the changes in the non-metal acceleration patches section of OpenCore Legacy Patcher. In this next section here, Mykola outlines streamlining of the application. WWDC draws near, which is macOS 13, will be announced. We've needed to prioritize development resources and have deprecated a few parts of the project. And one of the ones that I just mentioned earlier is removing the offline variants of the application. Now, all apps are offline variants, creating less confusion on binary selection. So if we go over here back to the GitHub and we look at the releases section, we will notice the change right away. There's only two options of the application still available: the OpenCore Patcher GUI and the TUI application. If we go down to 0.4.3 in the assets section, there's 4 different versions. You're wondering, what the heck am I supposed to download here? What that means is that if you have a Mac that needs legacy Wi-Fi drivers, that's when you needed to download the offline app. Because if you came back up after a fresh install and you needed Wi-Fi, you don't have Wi-Fi until you run the patches. But if you can't get to the internet to do that, then you're left in a situation where you're in trouble. You'll have to find a USB, another computer, or connect to Ethernet to be able to download the patcher. With the offline app, all the drivers are built into the application itself, and you won't need need to be able to do that anymore, which is really nice. Another part of this is if you look on one of the improvements, the Mojave and Catalina root patching has been removed. It was never officially supported outside of developers, and if you wanted to still do that, you could use 0.4.3. And when he did that, notice the size here. It went all the way down to 217. So if we look at the size of the original offline, it was 500 megabytes. So there was a really nice savings of space here when we removed the Mojave and the Catalina pieces. Now let's go over some more changelog fixes here. I'm going to skip over some of these because they're a little bit more for advanced users and focus more on some of the non-metal fixes. There's been some crashing on some Catalyst apps like messages after 20 minutes or 120 seconds here on non-metal. That's been fixed. That was a really great one. There's automatic dark light and light mode that's been fixed. The rim improvements, we've went over those in the non-metal settings. Trackpad swipe between pages has been fixed. Cycle between windows, and improve the display preference page image. If we go into these displays here, you can see it now is a proper picture of the Mac that you're using instead of a picture of a monitor. So that's a really nice fix too. If we scroll down here, we can see that there's also a fix to the loading of the macOS installers directly from Apple. It skips writing the catalogs to disk and loads directly from memory. Click on Create macOS Installer and then click Download macOS Installer. It would download the catalogs and write them to your hard drive instead, but now it loads up really quickly here. And another change is that it will only list the current latest versions of the macOS installer. And that's going to help because a lot of users were confused and they might have accidentally picked the wrong one, like an older version, and you don't want to run like the oldest version of macOS Monterey with a lot of bugs in it. And you can still reload with all the installers. So you can click on this button here, and this is what a normal user would have seen in 0.4.3 and lower. And they were like, what the heck's going on here with all these different versions? So if we look here, it talks more about the automatic root patching system for the fresh install and the post OS update changes here. One thing I wanted to highlight here, to notify users when OpenCore is booted from an external disk and not matching OS, i.e. a USB installer. That was another user question that says, I can only boot my OpenCore Legacy Patcher based Mac with the USB drive still plugged in. And that's because you didn't install OpenCore Legacy Patcher to your hard drive, so the settings are there instead of the USB. Let's take a look at what that looks like. It says OpenCore Legacy Patcher has detected that you're booting from OpenCore from an external drive. To boot without a USB drive plugged in, you can install OpenCore to the internal drive. Would you like to launch OpenCore Legacy Patcher and patch to the install to your local disk? Click OK and it'll install to your internal hard drive. You can reboot, remove the USB, and boot like normal. That's a really nice improvement for sure. Now let's look at some of the application enhancements. If we go back to our example system here, one of the changes that we talked about a little bit earlier is to add the reboot prompt after root patching. So if we look at the way that these two are set up here, I got 0.43 and 0.44 here. If we click install root patch here and then hit start root patching, it'll relaunch his root and then enter in your administrator password, and then it'll launch again. And then what'll happen is that the application will load again at the default menu here. And then that got users confused. And then they would have to click post install root patch, then click start root patching, and then it would be left here at the end. And some users were wondering, well, I guess I'm done. All I need to do is click on return to the main menu. I'm complete. But they didn't realize that they actually have to reboot the system for those patches to take effect. So the change here is twofold. Add the reboot after the patching. That was one of the main fixes here. And then the second one was to streamline the GUI relaunch to be able to launch right into the next section. And I'll show you what that looks like. So then again, it does say reboot at, but if you're not paying attention, you don't read that last line, you could be confused and then click this and you think, hey, I'm ready to go. And the system's still slow. So the way that's been improved on 0.44 is by clicking install root patch, then click start root patching. We still have to relaunch his root. We'll type in our password, but it's going to bring us directly to the section for root patching instead of bringing you back to this main menu. And there it goes. The root patching is already kicked off, so that helps the user to know they are automatically patching without having to know to click on this all over again. So we'll let this finish here and we'll see that new reboot prompt. You'll notice that the return to main menu is grayed out. so someone couldn't accidentally cancel out this process when the important tasks are being made here. And we can see that that's this next part here that's an improvement. And now here's that reboot message. Reboot to the apply the patches. Now that's new because again, they saw this and they're like, what should I do? Well, now we know we have to reboot after. Now the next section here is add currently booted SIP settings to the currently booted information to the SIP setting. If we go back to the main menu, we'll go click on settings here in 4.3, click on SIP settings here, and we've got a new section in here called currently boot settings. So if you go in here and configure your SIP settings, it's nice to know what you're now currently set to. Also, there's new disk highlighting during the build install process. So if we can go back here and see the install OpenCore to either your USB or your internal hard drive, you can see that there's now blue highlighting. And note the blue represents the disk OpenCore is currently booted from. And that's your tip off to say, oh shoot, if this is blue, I'm booted off my USB. And you want to be able to see that your internal drive is booted. And that gives you a nice informational message here to show you which one you're actually booted. Now there's one more really nice change that was put in here that I wanted to highlight. And that's if you have an older Mac, for example, around 2011, 2010 and older that need legacy Wi-Fi drivers. So if you install a macOS update, you're not going to have Wi-Fi when you come back up. So when the automatic patching system runs, it's going to be unable to check to see if you're running the latest version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher. And you'll get this message. We are unable to verify that there are any new releases of OpenCore Legacy Patcher on GitHub. Be aware that you may be using an outdated version. And if you're unsure, verify on GitHub that the OpenCore Legacy Patcher is the latest official release. Click on OK and it will apply those patches as is with that version of OpenCore Legacy Patcher. So at least you can get the legacy Wi-Fi drivers and then you can check your version. And if you're on an older version, you can rerun the post-install root patches with the latest version of the application to be fully up to date. And that's the 0.4.4 update video. I wanted to thank Mykola, especially the lead developer of OpenCore Legacy Patcher, for answering some of the questions that I had about the update. Plus, we collaborated together with some of the improvements that I suggested and some of the questions and improvements that you, the viewer, had from the comments of the videos that I've been producing. I've been sharing that feedback with Mykola, and a lot of the feedback that was shared was put into this new version. So it's amazing that the feedback is working, getting the application improved, which is really in a nice place right before macOS 13 comes out. I also want to thank all of the developers of the OpenCore Legacy Patcher app, especially the hardworking non-metal developers. You guys are doing an amazing job, and all the users of OpenCore Legacy Patcher truly appreciate all your hard work. Thank you again for watching this video, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.